Okay, y'all. Here's story number two. So I want a garden, right? And for a garden, you need a garden hose, right? So you can water stuff, right? You know, you sit out there with your little water hose, little nozzle hose, okay, whatever. Anyways, but I say I'm gonna invest in a quality water hose, and I go and I spend $50 on this thick, long hose, right? And I come home and I attach it, and everything is working out just fine, right? Now, suddenly, this the hose starts to leak. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I don't want to go spend another $50. And I obviously, I don't know. I just don't want to spend more money on this. And this is ridiculous. And I'm upset, right? And so then I start to figure out how can I do this on more inexpensive way, right? And it turns out you can fix a water hose. You cut off the threaded part and you attach a new one, and there's like these little metal bands that you tighten and you're good to go. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go do that because $15 is better than 50, right? So I'm telling Mac, I'm like, hey Papa, um, I gotta fix the water hose, and he's like, let me take a look, darling. Right, darling. He calls me darling. And he's taking a looking at it and he's like, there's a rubber gasket missing. I'm like, rubber gasket? He's like, yeah, you can't put metal, the threaded metal on the metal thing of the nozzle because it's not going to create a seal. And I'm like, well, doesn't that make sense, right? Now, I need to tell you guys about this gasket, okay? Because it's not just any gasket. It's not just some little rubber flat thing that you can get anywhere. This is a particular type of gasket because it has little nubs on it so that it can stay threaded within the nozzle head, right? So I'm like, but either way, I'm like, okay, cool. All right. Because now I'm only going to spend a couple bucks to replace this one. And it just so happens that I have other little water attachment things because I have a fish tank and I'm just going to use that until I can buy a replacement. Hooray. Praise God. This conversation with my husband happened on Monday. Okay. Now, details I need to fill in. The previous weekend, the previous Saturday, I was supposed to go and pick up more compost, right? But things happen in life and I didn't get to go. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to go next weekend. So the plan was to go the following weekend. My husband had off that week from work. And the next day, Tuesday, from when we had that conversation, he decided that he was going to go and get the compost for me. Right? I was fixing to go into one of my meetings and he was like, darling, I'm gonna go get the compost. And I was like, oh my goodness, Papa, you're gonna go do this without me prompting you to? How kind of you. Thank you, Papa. So he goes. This place where he goes to pick out compost, it's you need to please keep in mind that the compost pile isn't like this dinky little thing in the corner. No, this is a huge, freaking mountain of compost. This thing can swallow up a house, okay? It's a huge mountain of compost where you randomly pull up next to get the compost. There are other piles of compost that are being processed, and then there's one under shade where they're continuously bringing dirt out and just, putting it on the pile that's there. Okay, so he goes and he fills up 9 sacks of compost, each one weighing between 70 and 100 pounds. These are heavy sacks, and I know they're heavy sacks because when he came home with the 9 sacks, he unloaded them on the side of the house. So there's your first shuffle from the truck to the side of the house. And then I proceeded to move them from the side of the house to the patio. That's another shuffle of these sacks, right? They're heavy sacks. Okay, so one by one, I'm taking the sacks, and um, one of the sacks stays in the truck, right? So I'm down to 8 sacks now on my patio. One of them stays in the truck because we're going to go drop that off to my father-in-law. Now I'm taking these sacks from the patio and just dumping them, randomly dumping them into the garden bed, right? Not thinking, and I'm just emptying out the sack, moving along, keep it trucking. We are down to the last sack. And by this point, I have noticed that there are little bits of garbage in the compost, things that don't decompose, right? Because after all, this this compost pile is a city compost pile, and people sometimes throw away things that they shouldn't throw away in the compost bins, right? And so there's little bits of sometimes glass or plastic, and what I end up doing is at this last compost sack, I put it on the garden bed, and I end up, can you, okay, I'll be right in. Go back inside. I'll be right in. I end up spreading it out, you know, and I end up combing through it. I get on my knees, and I'm just picking little bits of garbage out of it. And out of the corner of my eye, I spot this round thing. And so I reach for it and I grab it. And it's a gasket. But again, it's not just any gasket. It's a gasket with little bumps on it so that it threads into a nozzle and stays in place. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, right? What are the chances that, one, the day before, I was talking to my husband about fixing a water hose and coming to find out that I needed to replace a gasket? What are the chances are that my husband, out of the kindness of his heart, is going to volunteer to go get these heavy sacks of compost? What are the chances that he is going to pull up next to the precise space on this mountain to get this compost on a specific day, because this compost is getting moved, right? And it's getting moved by the yard loads. So, what are the chances that that's going to happen? What are the chances that the sack that had the gasket didn't stay in the truck to go to my father-in-law? What are the chances that in the shuffling that I was making it from the side of the house to the patio, the gasket was not in one of the sacks that just got dumped into the bottom of the garden beds? What are the chances that it was in the last sack that I was combing through? What are the chances that I didn't just get a regular gasket? I got a specific type of gasket for a specific need. I don't believe in luck. I don't think that this was coincidence. I don't think, I just don't. There are just too many. What are the chances? So, what does this mean for me, right? Here's the thing. Sometimes I go through things in life where I'm sitting there thinking, God, where are you? And there's things that, people don't know. And sometimes I feel very lonely. And I ask, God, where are you? And I think that this insignificant little gasket was meant to remind me who I belong to. I think it was him saying, you are mine. And I am there every day, all the time, in absolutely everything that you do. You are mine. And so then I think that that's what I want to share. I think that's what I want to say. That he is there. He is in everything. He is in the gasket. He is in the lost keys. He is in absolutely every single, he cares about every single thing about you. Because here's the thing. I was reminded on how somebody once asked me, they asked me, Are you done having kids? And I said, if it's God's will, I'm done having kids. And they looked at me and they said, do you really think God cares about how many kids you have? And I said, yeah, I do. And yeah, I do. I think he cares about every single thing about his people. Everything about his people. It doesn't matter the complexity. Are you fighting disease? Did you lose your keys? He cares. He is in every single bit of it, and he is with you. And we just have to take the time to acknowledge him, to look for him, and see him in the big and in the small. That's it for now. God bless.